Okay, this video is going to give us an introduction to our next chapter. We're going to be dealing with loops, and the nice thing about loops is that it's going to have some similarities to the if structures, if-else structures that we've been writing, and so that there's going to be some common or familiar ground that we'll see as we go along. So what we're going to do, we're going to introduce loops by way of what we call a double investment program that we're going to write eventually in JGrasp. And so make sure that you're taking notes. You should be writing all this stuff down, and eventually we'll get to writing code in JGrasp. So the double investment program is the purpose of it is going to be to determine how many years it takes to double an investment. So let's say you invest $5,000. How many years will it take for that investment to grow and become 10,000? That kind of thing. Now you're going to have to potentially pause the program, pause the video at times, because I'm not going to wait. I can't wait for you to write everything, so you're going to have to be pausing the program or the video as we go. So what we want to do is we want to develop an algorithm using pseudocode. So an algorithm is a series of steps to solve a problem. So if you were to write down the directions to making a cake, those steps that would be considered the algorithm. And pseudocode we're familiar with, using words and terms that aren't necessarily code. So before writing a code or writing a program, many times it helps to do it manually first, and a lot of times students don't like to do this. But it's worth the time because it will help you to be able to write code more effectively, and you'll have more of an understanding of the program as you're writing it. And so what we want to do is develop the program and then write the code. We want to develop the algorithm, the series of steps in pseudocode, and then we're going to write the actual code in Java. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the situation in the form of a table. So this is something you should create, so you kind of have a table here. It makes it easier to see how things are going. So basically we're trying to figure out how many years it takes. And so right now, of course, we're on year 0. Because we're just starting this. We're going to invest an initial amount of $1,000. All right, we're going to start with an initial balance of $1,000. That's our investment. We put $1,000 in, and then we keep it in the bank, and it will, because of interest, it will get more and more and more just naturally and automatically. And so our target, of course, is to double that amount. So our target is to reach $2,000. But we want to know how many years it will take to double that investment. And so the interest rate is going to be 5%. Okay, so this is really 5%. You could write this as 0.05 or 0.05 if you wanted. Either way, you could do that. And so we're gonna take the interest at the end of every year and increase our balance. So of course our starting balance is going to be 1,000. All right, so we put the $1,000 in the bank, and a year later, now we're going to start working on this. So a year later, well, what are we going to do? We're going to, first, let's add 1 to the year. So after the first year, we're going to be calculating the interest. And so we're going to calculate the interest. The interest is just simply taking your balance and multiplying it times the rate. They call this they call this an APR. Well, I should do it like this. APR might be, oh man, I just blew that. Okay, anyways, APR. And so that might be a term you see once in a while, and that means annual percentage rate. And remember, to get the rate, you got to divide by 100, or move the decimal point over 2 times to the left, so it's 0.05. So we're going to multiply that. And so if we did that in our calculator, then we would find out that 1,000 times 0.05 is 50. And so the interest is going to be 50. And then the next thing we ought to do is take and add that 50 to our balance. And so now what started as being $1,000 after 1 year has grown to be $1,050. All right, so that's pretty cool. All right, so now that's after 1 year. Now the question is, do we need to go on to the next year? This gets into why we call loops also a control structure like the if statements, because the compiler has to make a decision on whether to do something based on something being true, or Boolean expression being true or false. So we have to make a decision. Do we want to go another year? Well, what we do, remember, our target is 2,000. All right, so this is where we're headed. And our current balance is now 1,050. And so we are going to make that decision by comparing the balance with the target. And so we compare the balance and target, and we ask ourselves, have we reached our target? Well, and of course the answer is no, we have not reached 2,000 yet. All right, so we go, and then what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and do this again. Well, we're going to add 1 to the year. We're going to calculate the interest, which is the balance times the rate. And so we're going to take the current balance, which is 1,050, and multiply it by 0.05. And so now we get 52.5. And then, of course, we add that interest onto our current balance. And now we have, I can't find my marker. There it is. We have it has oh, crumb. Okay, just a second here. I just blew it. Okay, so then our new balance, oh boy, I can't find this marker. There we are. Okay, so it's 1,102.5. All right, so now after 2 years, we have our balance. We no longer have just 1,000. Now it's 1,102. So it's getting higher. And then we go, and then we're going to compare our balance with our target. And so of course, we haven't reached that 2,000 yet. So we're going to go one more time. Let's go ahead and go another time. So we add 1 to the year. Then we do the balance, which is now 11,000 or 1,102.50, and so as you can see, that number is getting larger, and we're going to multiply it times 0.05, and so we get 55.125. All right, so now we have 1157.625. All right, so, and then of course we compare again, and we see that we haven't reached our target, and so that we would go ahead and do the whole thing over again. All right, so that's basically kind of the manual part of this. We don't want to go all the way because we don't know how long this is going to take. And by the way, it does take about 15 times, so we don't want to be doing that the whole time. And so let's go like this. And so here's what happens. Now we've actually set up the algorithm, which is to add 1 to the year, calculate the interest, to add interest to the balance, and then to compare the balance to target. That's really our algorithm. And so now we're going to move on and start writing some code. And so let's go here, and what we want to do is I need you to write down what a loop is. A loop repeats a set of instructions or block of code while a condition is true. So let's see if I can get this. All right, so what we did over here, let me see, is we were always checking that condition, which is at the bottom. We were always comparing. We were comparing the balance and the target, and we were seeing a certain condition was true, and that would lead us to do it again and repeat, keep repeating. And so now, as we write this code, this is what we want to start to write. So let's go like this. Oh boy, okay, so I didn't do that very well. Okay, so let's declare this and initialize the variable int, our year. And so then that's what we did over here. This is all initialized here, year 0. And then we do the next thing, which is to initialize the interest to be 0, because that starts out as 0, and it's a double. And then the next thing, let's go ahead and initialize the initial balance. And we're going to make that a named constant. And so, and it's something that's not going to change. Once you've started the program, that initial balance isn't going to change because you can't, because you started with it. So anyway, so that's 1,000, which is what we did over there. And then we want to declare and initialize the rate, or the APR. And so that's, of course, a double, 0.05. And then we want to initialize the target. We're going to do that. And sometimes it's good to put some of these things in a separate variable. You don't have to do this. You could actually just use 2,000 as being your target. But the nice thing about this is if you do change your initial balance up here, you could run the program, or in a sense, over again and maybe start at 5,000. And then so this will automatically update the target to be whatever 2 times that is. So it'll do that automatically. Now I am missing a data type. So final double target. And then I believe we got to do the balance yet. Okay. There we go. All right, so we've got our variables declared and initialized, the ones that needed to be, I guess all of them did. And now what we're going to do is, that's kind of the first row here. This is the first row, is these initial values declaring our memory locations, and essentially is what we're doing. All right, and so now we're going to start acting and starting to add 1 year and calculate the interest and all that, writing code for that. Well, this stuff's going to be repeated, so what has to be repeated, so this is repeated. And so this stuff here it has to be in a special place. And so what we want to do then, we're going to start something that looks somewhat similar to an if statement. And this is a while statement. And so you're going to start out with the word while. And when this is a special word, so when the compiler sees the word while, it means something to it. So it knows that there's going to be some kind of a looping, a repeating going on. And then we have the condition just like we have in the if statements. And so as long as now this is sometimes the harder part, is, well, what has to be true? Remember, we said that a loop repeats a set of instructions while the condition is true. Well, what has to be true in order for you to continue on? Well, when we were looking at this balance, comparing the balance with the target, if you remember, we were looking at that and we were comparing that. Well, we haven't reached 2,000 yet. So you have to be able to write that as a Boolean expression. And so the condition that has to be true is the balance. As long as the balance is less than the target, we got to keep going. We got to keep going until the balance is no longer smaller, but at least equal to or more. But this has to be true. Condition has to be true to continue on in the loop. Now, inside this loop, then what we're going to do is we're going to write the code for adding 1 to the year. And so that would be year plus plus. Now, year plus plus is a shortcut, and it means add 1 to the variable year. This is something you have to write down so you know this. So year plus plus means to add 1 to the variable year. So it's shorter than going year equals year plus 1. All right, the next thing we want to write is we want to calculate the interest. Well, the interest is going to be taking the balance times the rate. All right, and so that will give, and that will be, and you'll store that in the interest. So when we did this before, if you remember, we wrote down 50 the first time. So we stored 50 in interest. And then the balance then is going to be updated. The balance is we take the interest, oh my goodness, and we're going to add it to the balance. And so that is when we went 1,000 plus 50 and got 1,050. And so in the memory location, it gets updated. Okay, the next thing is now we compare the balance. Well, now wait a second. Where do we compare the balance? Well, the thing is that this is the end of the loop. And so what I need you to do here is to write down here end of loop, return to while. All right, so end of loop, return to while. And so what the compiler does, this is again now where we're not going to go, just keep going down to the next line of code. This actually and by the way, this isn't actual code. Okay, this is just a comment. And so at the end of the loop, the compiler goes back to while and goes and looks at the condition to see if that condition is true or not. And if you remember, when we were over here, we checked, well, is 1050 less than 2000? If it is, then we're going to go through and go again and now start adding the year. And so we'll go and repeat these steps. And if you remember, the balance ended up being something like 1100 and something. And so now we go back and check, well, is 1100 blah, 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 is that less than 2000? Yes, it is. And so we're going to keep on going. And then so this will become 3. And then it'll become 4, and it'll become 5, and then it will keep on going, repeating those 3 lines of code because they're inside the body of the loop. So another thing that we should, so this is a while statement, and this is, this right here is the loop body. And the loop body, of course, is the instructions that are being repeated. And while a condition is true, the condition is in the while statement. It's that Boolean expression. All right, and so that's why it's a loop, because we're going here, 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 until this is false. Once it becomes false, then we kick out of the loop and we go past outside of the loop. And so, well, what are we going to do here? There is one more thing we could write in here, and that would be, hopefully I have it. So there we are. And so this would be the final statement to say. So you would do a print statement that says your investment doubled after so many years, and at that point the year variable will have, in this case I think it's, well, I don't know if it's 15 on this one, but it would have something around there. All right, so that is a while loop. You have the body of the loop. It's repeating these instructions until this condition becomes false, and then it kicks out of the loop and goes past the loop and starts going on with the program. So what I need you to do now is to write this program in JGrasp. So you've got it written down here on paper, which you need. But now you need to write this program in JGrasp and call it, the name of the program is, class name is double investment, and then compile and debug it, fix any errors you have, run the program, and see how it goes. And so just see how it works. And so that is the intro to loops. We'll stop there. If I can get that. Oh boy. There we are.